Hello again and welcome to another edition of Newsmaker of the Week. I'm Leon Warden and I am pleased to welcome this week's Newsmaker, the newest star on the Newhall Walk of Western Stars, stuntman Phil Rawlins. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Now, you've got a new bronze plaque out there on Market Street. What's it feel like to be walked all over?
Well, I'm thrilled to have it for two reasons. It's two of my best friends and my heroes when I was a young man are on the Walk of Fame, and I'm there with them. That's Jauregui and Ben Johnson.
They're a couple local guys.
Yes. And the second reason is it's my hometown.
How long have you lived in Newhall?
I've actually lived in the place I live right now 38 years.
38 years.
Yeah.
You've seen a little bit of change.
Yeah, and before that, I would come up here and rope with over at Andy Jauregui's place in Fox O'Callahan's, which happens to be the place I own now.
And that's out in Placerita Canyon.
Yes, actually Quigley Canyon, but it's part of Placerita.
Okay, yeah. Not too far from Melody Ranch.
Right over the hill.
What's it like to have a cowboy festival in order to see cowboys nowadays in Newhall?
Well, it's different because before I moved here, this was known as the Cowboy Capital of California. The last rodeo of the year was always at the LA stockyards. Mm-hmm. Now, after the stockyards, the cowboys would winter in Newhall, and the Newhall would be full of cowboys for about 2 months, waiting for the new year to start. And they'd practice and just try to stay in shape for the new year.
Now, they were practicing rodeoing out here, or were there enough ranches for them to work on and, make some money?
They actually didn't. Most of them just were, just spending their time here. They weren't working on ranches or anything. They were practicing roping and things. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'd buy some calves and practice roping calves or bulldogging steers. And a lot of them got into the picture business, a little bit, working extra and mm-hmm. doing a few stunts and things like that. For instance, Fox O'Callahan, who actually was from Nebraska, and he came out here and he liked it here and he stayed and got in the picture business and bought some property, and he's was one of the old time residents out here. Mm-hmm.
Now, when they were wintering out here, what decade are we talking about?
We're talking about the 50s.
Okay.
This is when I was here. I was at the end of the 40s and the 50s is when I was out here, and all those guys were hanging around out here and practicing and roping, and when they could, they'd work in a picture. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there was other local fellas like Sal Lombardi, who he was a car salesman for Clymore Motors, which mm-hmm. was up on San Fernando Road. They sold Fords there. Yeah. And he was a roper, and I went to a lot of rodeos with Sal.
So Lombardi, like Lombardi Ranch, Lombardi worked for Clymore Ford, huh?
Yes.
Well, I didn't know that.
He was a brother of Frank.
Okay.
And he worked for Clymore Motors. Mm-hmm. Lauren and Frank Clymore also roped a little bit. They team roped.
Did they?
Yeah. Now,
where would they, did they do the rodeo circuit or what?
No, they weren't that quality probably, but, Sal would.
But everybody did a little bit.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
This is back when the Newhall Land and Farming Company was actually a ranch and farming company.
That's right. It was a big outfit, and the valley here was full of Boscovich onions or something, and mm-hmm. Jurassic carrots.
Right.
Bunny love.
Bunny love carrots. Over there where there's a car dealership now in Valencia.
Right.
Yeah.
That's Jurassic. That was Gary Lockwood.
What, you mentioned that, even when you used to come here but didn't live here, it was known as the Cowboy Capital. Who considered it the Cowboy Capital?
It was just a nickname that they had. There was more cowboys in this town than any town in California. Now I think it's Oakdale, California.
Okay. Now, when you didn't live here, where did you live?
I was raised in the Santa Clarita Valley.
Okay.
I went to North Hollywood High School, and my dad was in the motion picture business. Mm-hmm. So I sort of gravitated into the motion picture business. Also, first as a stuntman, and then in production as an assistant director. And I directed some shows and was a production manager up until I retired in 2000.
So you did it for quite some time.
Yes.
How old were you when you started?
18, and I quit when I was 70, so that's, 52 years.
Uh-huh. you've seen quite a bit and quite a bit of change, not just in Newhall, but I guess in the picture business. Let's see, if you were 18 years old, what year are we talking about?
We're talking about 1948.
48. Mm-hmm. So what was your first foray into the picture business?
I was working on my dad was doing a movie in Arizona called Massacre River was the name of this movie. He was directing it, and it starred Rory Calhoun and Guy Madison. And I worked as an Indian in it. I did some falls and things like that in Arizona. Then came back here and I worked extra and did stunts whenever I could. But my main thing was I was a calf roper and a steer wrestler at the rodeos, and that was my main thing that I liked to do. The other just kind of helped finance my rodeo career.
Pay for it. Okay. And if you played an Indian, that was long before the days when Indians in the movies actually had to be Indians.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was, Italians were playing Indians, I think, most of the time.
Iron Eyes Cody.
Yeah.
Was Italian, wasn't he?
I think he was French, actually.
French?
Yeah, I think he told me he was part French. He claimed he was Indian also, but I think he was Iron Eyes had a French father or something.
He's got a plaque out there on San Fernando Road. Who else out there has a plaque out there that you worked with?
Oh, there's. I worked on some John Wayne movies. He's got a plaque out there. There's. Oh golly, I can't think of who else got plaques out there, but I don't think. Like I worked with Henry Fonda, Clark Gable, just about all of the big stars when they'd make a Western movie. I doubled.
Now, you didn't double for Clark Gable, did you?
No, I doubled for, I did a movie called The Tall Men. And we worked in Sun Valley, Idaho, and then we went to Mexico and did a huge cattle drive. And I doubled Robert Ryan.
Okay.
A fellow by the name of Chuck Robertson doubled Clark Gable. Mm-hmm.
Who are some of the people that really stand out that you worked with, that, names people would know that really impressed you?
Oh, and when I was doing stunts, of course, Clark Gable, who was a wonderful guy, and he was we were working an hour and a half from town down in Mexico, and so I was riding the bus with the rest of the stunt guys and stuff, and he'd pull up to the bus and say, "Phil, come on, get in with me. I want to talk about calf roping." And I'd get in, we'd talk about calf roping all the way home.
What did he want? Did he want to rope a calf?
I think he at one time had wanted to a little bit,
Yeah?
Yeah.
Tell me about some other people. Tell me about Henry Fonda.
Henry Fonda, actually, I didn't work as a stuntman with him. I worked on a movie called Spencer's Mountain. And we made it, and I was an assistant director on the show. And I was the assistant director on the second unit. And the second unit would get up like 3 o'clock in the morning, and we'd go out and wait for the sunrise, and we'd shoot beauty shots of Jenny Lake and swans and moose and different things. But then our day was over about noon. Mm-hmm. So I'd come in and I'd take a nap in the afternoon. And then when Hank would get done working, he'd give me a call on the phone and said, "Let's go downtown." And I'd go downtown with him, and we'd have dinner and talk and things. He was... What
kind of a guy was he?
He was terrific. He was a man's man and a ladies' man. He was both.
So not the, kind of, I don't know, arrogant Hollywood type,
Nothing like that.
He was a genuine guy?
No, he'd be sitting on the curb in the morning waiting to be picked up with his script. Mm-hmm. Just waiting in front of the motel, waiting to be picked up to take in the work.
Now, all this time you were rodeoing.
Yeah.
Where did you ever, go far in rodeo?
Well, not as far as I'd like to, naturally, but I won some big rodeos. I won St. Paul, Oregon 1 year. Everybody was there. I won Santa Maria 1 year in the calf roping. Everybody was there. Mm-hmm. But I didn't win Cheyenne or Pendleton or any of those. I've been to all those, and I placed at them, but I didn't win them. In the senior pros, which was after you get older, I did that for several years, and I won the senior pro world's champion in the team roping.
Mm-hmm. Now out here in Newhall, Saugus, of course, over at Saugus Speedway used to be Bonelli Stadium.
I roped there.
Have you?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, I know it. It was a rodeo grounds in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. When was it? When would you have roped there that it was still used as a rodeo grounds?
I roped there in the early 50s.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I won. I think I was about 20 years old, and I went to the Saugus Rodeo, and I won second.
Okay.
I didn't win first. I won second at Bonelli Stadium, and I had never won a rodeo. Well, I was wanting to win that rodeo, but I ended up second. Mm-hmm. And the next week we had a rodeo in Santa Monica. Spade Cooley, I remember, was the grand marshal of the. He used to play down on this in the Santa Monica Ballroom down on the pier, and he was there, and I won the rodeo the next week.
Okay.
Same guys. But I happened to draw better and ended up winning the roping.
Yeah. Didn't they have a rodeo that was connected like to the 4th of July parade here in Newhall at some time?
Yeah, they had a couple. They had one out in, if you go to the end of San Fernando Road, under the freeway, there was one out there one year.
Okay.
Connected with the 4th of July.
Mm-hmm. Were there other rodeo grounds here in town?
There was no rodeo grounds. There was a lot of arenas.
Okay.
Castake used to have a roping arena. We used to rope at Castake on the 4th of July a lot of times. Mm-hmm. Andy had an arena where the freeway is now, right in Placerita Canyon.
Placerita and the 14th,
yeah,
more or
right
less.
there. He had an arena right there. And we'd rope, we'd go from one arena to another roping.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of, some of the ways the stunt business has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing this back in the 40s and the 50s and even into the 60s. Yeah. I guess it's probably a little different from, the movies you see today where you got all these special effects and everything. Yeah. Tell me what it used to be like. I mean, now it's all computer generated. What did they do before computers?
For computers, we just did it. When I was a stuntman, there was enough Westerns to keep me busy as much as I wanted to be, I thought. Just doing Westerns and, falling off a horse, that was like being paid to play Cowboys and Indians. We just...
you can fall off a horse anytime.
No big deal.
I could probably fall off. That's about all I could do. But
your first one is your best one. From there on, they go downhill.
But tell me how things have changed in terms of doing stunts.
Well, there are hardly any more Westerns. I don't believe the kids nowadays want to see a Western. That's gone by. We all wanted to see Westerns. We'd go to Westerns when we were kids, and now there are no Westerns because the kids don't like them, and that's the bottom line is who's going to pay to see these things? And if they don't pay to see them, they're not going to make them. And so they don't make Westerns now. They make big action movies. Mm-hmm. And
how genuine are those stunts in these action movies?
Well, there's naturally some danger to them, but now with the computer generation and everything where they can erase cables, we never used to be able to put cables on guys. When they'd fall off a building, they'd fall into some cardboard boxes or something, and that would break their fall. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, they have these cables and a big crane up there, and they have it all tied off, and the guy falls off, and they can stop him like 3 foot from the ground.
Yeah.
And he never hits the ground.
Yeah. In a fight scene in a movie nowadays, somebody kind of just punches somebody and the person flies over across the room.
Well, they've got a cable on him, and the cable is jerking him across the room, and they erase the cable somehow with a computer.
Yeah, well, did you used to use cables for that kind of a scene?
Yeah, but you'd have to hide them with the person's body. Mm-hmm. You'd have to hide them somehow.
Yeah.
And usually you would be the angle that the camera would be, and the person's body would hide the ratchet and the cable and everything that was pulling him out of the shot.
Yeah. So what were most of the stunts that you were called in to do? Were they related to horses?
Related to horses, yeah.
Well, tell me about what kind of stunts you do.
You know, I have one stunt I did. I was doubling Randolph Scott in a movie, and they wanted him to buck off this bull, ride a bull for a little bit and buck off. And it didn't seem too much of a problem bucking off. You know?
But staying on for a little while.
Yeah, I stayed on for a little bit and bucked off. But then after Randolph Scott bucks off, supposedly, the bull is supposed to chase him, and he jumps into a watering trough to get away. So we're up in Lone Pine doing this in a corral, and the bull didn't buck too much, so I rode him long enough. They thought that was long enough, and I bucked off. Now they wanted the bull to chase me to the watering trough. So they've got a oversized watering trough there. It's bigger than, a little wider and a little longer. And so I would get about halfway between the bull and the watering trough, and the bull would be standing out there, and he wouldn't chase me because he knew I could get away. Mm-hmm. And so they ran out. I had a lot of film, and finally I said, hold it, cut it. They had about 5 cameras on this. And I said, be ready. I'm going to get around behind him where he doesn't see me, and I'm going to come running past him, and I'll get him to chase me that way. So I get behind him, and they roll the cameras, and I run past him, and I slap him in the nose as I go by. And now I'm running as fast as I can run, and he's about that far behind me. Uh-huh. I can darn near feel his breath back there. And I finally, the watering trough looks like it's in, I can reach it if I just leap. So I just take a leap, and I land in the water. I thought, wow, I made it. And just then, the bull can't stop, and he falls in on top of me. I'm on the bottom of the watering trough, holding my breath. The bull is on top of me, a 2,000-pound bull, standing on me. Finally, he backed off a little bit, and I came up, and I took a breath, and I peeked around, and there he is looking right at me.
Yeah,
just
waiting to get you.
Yeah, waiting
then
to get me. I went down again. Took a breath, I went down, and I held it a while. I finally came up, and he had left. Mm-hmm. He had gone away, and everybody was rolling on the ground laughing. I didn't think it was that funny, but they did.
You mentioned that was in Lone Pine. I know that Lone Pine, of course, was used a lot in westerns, and but there were a lot of places around here. What ranches around here did you work?
We used to work in the Thousand Oaks a lot at the Albertson Ranch, and I used to, when I was working extra, I worked at the old Melody Ranch. Before it was Melody Ranch, it belonged to Monogram, I believe. Mm-hmm. And the street was not where it is now. The street burned down, I think, in 1962 or something like that.
Right.
But I used to work on extra in that, and I'd ride on the stagecoach. I didn't drive it, but I'd ride as the shotgun guard or something coming into the street, you know. Mm-hmm. That was when Gunsmoke was a half-hour show. Not many people remember when Gunsmoke first started. It was just a half-hour show, it wasn't an hour show.
Yeah, and it was black and white, not color.
That's
wasn't
right.
That hokey 70s stuff. It was
James Arness, and he'd play in between shots. Maybe we'd be playing a little cards or something over there, and he'd come over and play with us, and he wouldn't have enough money to pay off. Mm-hmm. He was that. Now he could pay off.
Now he could probably pay off. Yeah. He was a tall guy.
Yeah, he is a big, tall guy. He was Peter Graves' brother. Mm-hmm. I did a couple of movies with Peter Graves.
Yeah.
Did Fury. Remember Fury?
Okay.
I was the second assistant on Fury one year.
What was it all horse-related stunts that you did, or did you do the falling off of buildings and fight scenes and things like that?
I did fight scenes. I did a fight in a movie called These Thousand Hills, and I doubled Don Murray and a fellow by the name of very good stuntman Roy Jensen doubled Richard Egan. Mm-hmm. And we did a fight. It started upstairs and went down the stairs and over tables and across this and across that, and finally through the window and out into the street in the mud and fought out there. It was went on quite a while.
Well, you nearly got drowned by that bull. Did you ever get hurt doing these things?
No, I never got hurt doing stunts. For some reason, I was lucky.
Mm-hmm. Do most people get hurt?
No. It's a calculated risk, but most of the time they don't get hurt. There has been people get hurt. People have gotten killed.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was a stuntman on a movie called The Horse Soldiers. And there was a bunch of stunt guys on this show. And we were taking turns doing stunts. Whatever the stunt was, it was your turn, you'd do it.
Yeah.
And so it came to a stunt that I was supposed to do, and it was a very simple stunt. It was a fall off a horse into a little fire that they had there and roll through that fire. And John Ford came to me and said, "This looks like a simple shot. Let's let Fred Kennedy do it." And so Fred Kennedy was an older fella, He says, "Let him make a little Christmas money." Mm-hmm. And so Fred Kennedy, we get back there, and I was next to him. We were supposed to go through this shot side by side, and he's supposed to do the fall. And I think he says, "I'm going to show these guys how to do a fall." And he went through this and fell off on his head and broke his neck and died right there.
Mm. Right in front of you.
Yeah. I went and caught the horse. There was a lot of people there, and I went and caught his horse and led it back. But that's how simple it can be sometimes.
What's the most dangerous stunt you've ever done?
Oh, golly. I don't know. I did. There was the other night they showed a little thing where it was supposed to be a horse race between Don Murray and this Indian. Mm-hmm. And the director wanted Don Murray to hang down way on the side of this horse bareback. Now, there's nothing to hang on to, Mm-hmm. And so I did the shot, and he says, "Well, I want you to hang down further." And so I got down as far as I could get, and I couldn't hold on. I fell off of this thing, and this horse ran over the top of me.
Kick you in the head?
No, he kind of kicked me a little in the chin there, but not too bad. But I figured out how to do it. I had a surcingle that was black, like the horse was, and I put that on him, and I got he was wearing pants, those sort of what they call booger reds pants, those red colored ones. And I got that, and I made a little thing where I could kneel in, tied it to the surcingle. Mm-hmm. Then I could get way down pretty underneath this horse, but I had my knee in this thing, so I wouldn't fall to the ground. Mm-hmm. And did that, and then at the end of the race, he's supposed to fall off, which I did, which was a cinch.
Yeah, that's the easy part.
I had already practiced that.
Practiced that part. Who was the unlikeliest person that you ever doubled for? Somebody who was totally not your body style. I mean, did you ever double for a woman or anything like that?
No, I never doubled for a woman. I've doubled for heavy set people where I had to put pads on and things like that. Big stomach pads and things like that. There. I was a big man.
Now, how'd you go from being stuntman to getting into directing?
Well, I was doing my dad, I was up in Idaho going to some...
What was your dad's name?
My dad's name, John Rawlins.
Okay.
Yeah. He directed a lot of little westerns and the Sherlock Holmes movies years ago and things like that, mostly B movies. He is very good at it. He is a good technician. Well, I was up in Idaho. I was about 22 or 3 years old, something like that, and I was having a good time. I was rodeoing and winning a little and winning enough to stay away from home. And he called me up and he says, "I'm doing a little TV series down here. It's your chance to get into the Directors Guild if you want to." And I said, "Well, I don't want to do that. Heck, what do I want to get in the Directors Guild? I'm not a director, And well, he said, as an assistant director. And so I said, well, okay. And so he was doing this little show called Mayor of the Town with Thomas Mitchell. And I came on as the second assistant. Mm-hmm. And we did I think we worked 6 days, I'm sure we worked 6 days a week. I hated it because I couldn't go to a rodeo. The rodeos were always on Saturday and Sunday. Here I had to work Saturday, so I didn't like the work. But I got the card, and as an assistant director. And I went back to doing stunts when the show was over. And I was just doing stunts and rodeoing. I was doing a stunt on rawhide. And I was on the stage down at MGM, and it was supposed to be a fight. And this guy I'm doubling is Rick Jason. I think he was in combat.
Okay.
And he is supposed to run and get on this horse, and then Mr. Favor, who is Eric Fleming, runs and grabs him and pulls him off the horse. Jumps up on the back of the horse and pulls him off. Which was, it was fairly simple, but the guy that pulls me off has to hold on to me and pull me to the ground. The fellow that did it didn't hold on to me and turned me upside down, and I'm about 6 foot off the ground and going straight down. I lit on my head. They're on that stage floor, and I mean, I don't know if you ever hit on so hard that you saw white, but that's what, everything went white. And
I just never got hurt.
It didn't hurt me, but it just kind of
just knocked you out.
And I was sore. This director was a wonderful director. His name was Jess Hibbs. And he had been a football player at USC. And he knew how bad a hurt person could get banged up, and he saw that, and he says, "That's perfect, no coverage, let's go to the next scene." And I was so happy. The next day, a fellow I know called me up from Florida and said, "I've got a job down here in Florida doing a TV series with Walter Matthau. Would you like to be the assistant director?" I said, "I'll be there tomorrow." And I was there.
What have you? What have been some of your favorite pictures that you've worked on, particularly as either an assistant director, just something in production?
I was the assistant director the first year on F Troop, and then in the second year I got to direct part of them. And I think I couldn't wait to get to work to start laughing. You'd laugh all day long.
Yeah.
It was the greatest job I think I was ever on.
Really?
Yeah, it's just all day long we laughed. And after that, I worked on High Chaparral, which was fun. It was a Western. We did it down in Arizona. And a lot of nice guys. Jack Lilly, his local fella here, the fella that introduced me the other night, he was on the show. And that was a lot of fun. And I've done the picture business has been great. Every day is different. You never go to work and you have the same problems. Yeah. It's always different.
It's always different problems.
Yeah, always a different problem you have to solve. But it's fun. And I've had a great time. I can't say I'd rather have done anything else in my life than what I've done.
Got to wrap it up, but what do you miss most about Old Newhall?
Well, I'm sorry to say this, but the other day I tried to ride from my place down to the street.
The Market Street to get your plaque.
Yeah. My neighbors, I'm ashamed to say, have dumped so much junk in the wash and everything else, I could not get through. I mean, it's terrible. I wish we got to do something about it.
But you did show up there on your horse. How'd you get there? Did you trailer it?
Yeah, I trailered him part way, past the junk, and then I got off and got him out and rode him over.
Well, Phil, on that note, we got to wrap it up.
Okay,
but congratulations again on getting your plaque, so we can walk all over you now on Market Street.
That's right. Clean your shoes.
Right there next to the Sons of San Joaquin and a bunch of others.
Yes.
So thanks for joining us. And thank you for joining us. If you missed any portion of this program, you can read a transcript in the Sunday Signal. Check back here, SCV TV Channel 20, Wednesday 9:30 p.m., Sunday 8:30 a.m. for another Newsmaker of the Week.